What's up, everybody? I want to welcome you back to Switch Talk, the perfectly pocket-sized podcast. For all of you Switch lovers out there, the system and its games have stolen our hearts and minds, so we really want to get together and talk about it, but only for 30 minutes. We cover the latest, greatest games, but we want you to fit us into your podcast schedule, so thank you so much for listening. You can catch the video version, of course, on YouTube, or go ahead and check out the audio on iTunes, but then you're not going to see our lovely mugs, so please go ahead and check us out. We really appreciate it. Today's a very special day. We're going to be talking about Mario, like is it Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which is turned out to be a sleeper hit, which is great. But today's very special because we have our very first guest. It is our first guest, isn't that right, Clay?
No, it's not.
Who was our first guest?
K from Strictly 64.
Well, he doesn't count because he's a foreigner.
Okay.
Yeah, so our very first guest from the States. He's coming to you live from Minnesota. We have John Wall of Megadads. I mean, I'm just super excited. Why don't you talk a little bit? Let me hear that amazing voice, John, please.
Oh, stop it now. Thanks for inviting me.
So glad that you could make it.
Yeah.
I got the idea to invite you on because Megadads, amongst all the things that they do some game reviews sometimes, and you were really excited about the game. I knew that you put in the time, that you were trying to convince your brother that it wasn't complete garbage, and I really respect that because not many people could stand up to Adam. He's kind of like an intimidating
He's
figure.
a bit of a bully.
Yeah, seriously. So, I knew that you had the fortitude to handle a conversation with myself and Clay. David cannot be here today, and he really enjoyed the game. So at a certain point, we're going to patch him in and hear his thoughts about Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So he did like a quick 2-minute. So sorry that he couldn't make it at the last minute. But again, we have John here. Just really quickly about Megadads again, if you haven't listened, go ahead and check them out. They got a very interesting solution for pleasing fans of their podcast, and it's only do it when it's convenient for them. So they only release their podcast monthly. So they say, forget the regular, show up on time. And even then, they delay it a little bit sometimes. It's really odd. But aside from doing the monthly podcast, Megadads Live, they do, go to conventions, things like that. Adam does animation, so he'll do comics. He's got some recognition recently for that. So definitely check out Megadads. Megadads awesome. At first, I thought that it was going to be all about how to be a gamer and a dad together, but really it's about how to cut out your family and strictly game with like neglecting all of your responsibilities as a father, which really spoke to me.
Yeah.
It's more of a strategy guide for neglecting your family. Yeah.
There you go. So we really want to kick it off with you, Jen. So again, thank you for being here. Talk to me about this game.
Oh, my pleasure. So Mario+Rabbids, it came out of nowhere. I think when the leaks first came out, everyone was kind of skeptical, to say the least.
Yep.
Wondering what it was going to be like, and then they had the full unveil at E3 this past summer, and I didn't get hands-on time at E3, but Adam got a little bit of time, and he kind of infamously despised the game. Which, if you follow Adam or listen to Adam much at all, that's not much of a surprise. If we're the grumpy old men of gaming, he's definitely Walter Matthau. He's just an old crank. So he was very skeptical. Didn't like it. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to play the game at E3, but we got a review copy of the game, and I said, well, I'm sure as heck not letting him review this. So I took it upon myself. I figured if we let him review it, that is the last review copy we ever get from Ubisoft. So I took it upon myself, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I mean, I went into it more optimistic than he was, but still not completely sold on it. And I was very surprised. They did a great job of capturing. I mean, visually and musically, it feels very Nintendo. It looks like a Nintendo-made game, but it's made by Ubisoft, I think Milan, their Milan studio, and it's very deep. It's very outside of the box for typical Nintendo. I mean, I'm not a guy who plays a lot of strategy games, a lot of turn-based role-playing games, so it was kind of new to me, but I think they did a great job of making it, while simple and accessible, easy to grasp. There's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of complexity the farther you go into it. But it's also full of good poop jokes, so it's, it appeals to that side of me as well.
I think that's the, I mean, like you said, that's the story. The expectations when you see, I guess you could call it a new IP, a new spin. You see a new crossover happening with, a franchise that's so beloved, as Mario. The initial shock, once that wears off, that's where the surprise comes from. Is like, not only is it a good game, it ended up being a great game. I didn't really want to have too much to say about it, except to just be honest to say that I didn't want to give the game a chance. I wasn't supposed to be on the show. I was going to have David take over the third spot, and I was hating on the game early. I didn't like the idea of Rabbids. Thought that was going to be annoying. I love XCOM, but I'm like, I can wait. And I'm glad that I, ended up getting into it. And the things that surprised me the most was, number one, that the Rabbids were not annoying to me. I think that the humor stays fresh. I think that because the cutscenes, the story that is there is driven along with, short jokes and short cutscenes, and I think that the Rabbids end up being most effective in those spurts. And again, it's just pretty spot on, the humor in general. The other thing that was surprising was the depth. I love XCOM, and I can't stop comparing it to that game, and I think that it lives up to, a challenging and in-depth top-down strategy game. And I think that my only complaint that remains, which apparently will go away later, is I'm barely reaching World 2 and started to buy a lot more weapons and unlock abilities. And I felt like in XCOM, there were two things. It was like every time you fired a weapon, it was very impactful, very poppy. You really felt like visceral in the combat, just with any starter weapon. And with these, it was like this little burst of like, I keep trying to figure out what it is. Like, what are they firing? A laser, whatever it is. So this little burst, and the Rabbids. I really wanted them to pop, and maybe in a Nintendo way, like in Splatoon, you're not killing anyone, but it felt very satisfying to take someone down in Splatoon, for instance, and I really didn't get that with the game. But apparently later, as I unlock more of the weapons, we'll get more bombastic, and things will pop a lot more. I've seen in some videos. So as I enter World 2, my long and short of what I want to say is that I surprisingly don't want to stop playing, and all I want is more of the game. I hear there's 4 worlds, and I got through them fairly quickly, being, playing a lot of XCOM, so I just want more. So that's really all I have to say, and again, I haven't played probably as much as Clay, so I'd like to hear what you have to say, Clay. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't beat the game yet, unlike John, so I'm still playing my way through it, but I'm loving it every second. Can't wait to get back into it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I keep hearing from other people, and I think it totally makes sense and I agree with, is that I think that this game feels like a Nintendo game outside of the fact that it's Mario. I think Ubisoft just did a really good job getting that polish and that charm. Yeah, it's got Rabbids in it, but it still feels like a Mario game. It feels like a first-party Nintendo game. And so, and for those of you who don't like the Rabbids, literally today, I shot a giant box full of explosives and Rabbids running around on fire. There was like 3 of them, and they were like, "Wah!" And I was like, "Hey, I mean, that was really entertaining for me." Like, so if you hate the Rabbids, you get to kill them in this game. That's pretty great, right? So,
well, they actually aren't dead. They show up later in a uncorrupted form.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a pretty it was a pretty good way of getting around it. Because I thought we were gonna kill them as well, and I was like, that's kind of morbid. But they found a way around it.
You can pretend.
Yeah, in your head canon, they can be dead if you want them to be. So, yeah. So other than that, I've I feel like I've gotten to the point where the difficulty is definitely ramped up. There's been a number of stages now that I've gotten stuck on. There was a boss, and there was a couple escort levels that I was really struggling through. But it was never to the point where I like rage quit or I hated the game. It was like, all right, I can do this. I just got to figure it out. And so, in fact, one night I just could not beat this level. I like calmly turned it off, went to bed, got up the next day, and I beat it like the first time when I turned it on. So I think sometimes it's just looking at it differently, and so there really is a lot of tactic to it. I don't play a lot of games like this, so I went in with like zero, expectations. It's just like, all right, let's see what this is all about. Never played XCOM, nothing like that. I've played some real-time strategy stuff, but way back in the day. So I really had no idea what I was getting myself into, but it looked appealing. It had Mario in it, so why not? Whereas I feel like Tony, on the other hand, Antonio, went in with all these expectations and prejudgments, and so his first night reactions were not making me very happy. But it sounds like he's come around a little bit. So his first words were, "It's not XCOM." I'm like, well, clearly it's not XCOM. No one ever said it was. At least Ubisoft never said it was. All right, sorry, I'm done. That's all out of love.
It gets more and more XCOM it gets more and more XCOM as time goes on, actually. But and that's a good thing. And you mentioned that everybody's expectations get shifted when playing the game. John, you completing the game, which that's a night and day difference from where we are. Clay, are you in World 2 or did you get to 3 yet?
Not at 3 yet. I think I'm getting closer to the end. Of World 2.
That's great. I think we're coming in here a little, after release. I think the biggest thing that we could do, the biggest contribution we can make to society at large, is to ask John about if anyone's on the fence and they haven't gotten it yet and they're, sleeping on it. What really changes? Does anything change later after World 2, or anything that you think things continue to warp in a positive way or even in a negative way? Like, what are your lasting impressions?
I do think the game does a really good job throughout the entire game, beginning to end, of changing up enough stuff to keep it really interesting throughout. Like, as far as there's not a huge difference between weapons or your secondary weapons and abilities, but you've got the skill tree and you're continually buying new weapons. And also with the enemies, I feel like every few levels they're introducing more and more new enemies, which keep it interesting. The difficulty continues to ramp up throughout the entire game. By the time I got to the end of the last World 4, it was pretty thoroughly kicking my butt at certain times. And like you said, it's pretty fair. It never felt cheap for the most part when when I would lose. Because it just came down to studying the battlefield, studying your enemy and their movements and what you could do. There were a few moments late in the game, just a couple of times, that I did get frustrated with the game, where they pulled... They did this thing where, towards the end, you would get to both the mini-boss and the last boss of World 4, and you would do two battles before. So you'd get to whatever 4-4, you would do one battle, defeat everybody, do another battle, finish that. And at this point in the game, I want to say, a battle can be 20-25 minutes, each fight as they get more complex. And after those two, then you get to the mini boss or the final boss of the game. And if you get defeated by one of those bosses, you have to go all the way back and do those two battles leading up to it again.
Jeez.
So I would spend 40 minutes getting through these battles, which weren't incredibly difficult, but it was just kind of time consuming. Get to the boss, he'd whoop my butt, then I would have to spend 40 minutes working my way back to the boss, which I thought was kind of cheap, artificially difficult. I didn't feel that was necessary. It would have been fine just to restart you from the boss battle. So, but other than those two instances where that frustrated me, the game gets quite difficult, but I never felt like it was being cheap. I just had to learn and grow with the game to get better at it. And like I said, the game got considerably longer. Each battle gets longer and longer the farther you go. I want to say I clocked in 30 to 35 hours total by the time I finished the main story. Whereas when I first started, I thought it was going to be somewhere like a 12, 15-hour game, the way I was you're fairly rapidly going through each battle. But it's quite a lengthy campaign, and I'm just kind of now starting to get into going back to the worlds I've defeated, because you're gaining these abilities as you go that you can use in the little world in between battles. You'll come across things you can't quite do yet, push this brick or dig here. And now that I've finished the game, I'm kind of going back through with all those abilities to see what I missed, what I can unlock now, secret levels, things like that.
That's excellent. I mean, and just before I forget, because I've been wanting to ask and I haven't done any research on this, is there any type of New Game Plus, or is it strictly going back to get all the perfect executions and the challenges? Is there any actual continuation beyond that?
No, not really. It's pretty much just going back and you can skip to whatever section of the worlds you want to jump right to, but it's pretty much just going back and trying to get that perfect rating, or just looking for hidden crates you might have missed and all that.
That's great. I mean, Clay, does that sound like a good time to you? Are you looking forward to everything that's in front of you then, hearing what John had to say?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've just been playing it pretty linear. I've just gone through the first world, then I go to the next one. Just today, just to experience it, I went back to World 1 and tried a couple challenges just to see what kind of variation those give you. And so doing that and, finding all those unlockables that I missed, that I couldn't access the first time, was pretty enjoyable. So I already feel like this game has a ton to offer. I think it's got a lot to it, and those things that you go back for, I think, just add even more to it. So I'm really excited to go back and do all that stuff. I don't know if I'll wait and beat the whole thing and then go back or not, but yeah, it's cool. It's I think if I could just get really stuck on something, then I can go back and do some challenges and get away from it for a little bit. I think that's probably a good idea. But Antonio, if you're wanting your hard mode, you just start a new game and don't use your skill tree and see if you can beat the game that way. There you go.
I didn't know how to use the skill tree at first because I couldn't understand the orb unlocks, what things cost. So I just kind of all right, I'll touch this later. And then when I started to die, the first time I died, I was unacceptable. Because in XCOM, you really don't want to do that. So just something inside me said, okay, forget it. I'm going to upgrade things. I don't want to be dying. So I, ended up having an easier time. And you were telling me, spend the money, because I hoard my cash in any game ever, even my items. So it definitely changed things. If you're playing it, take advantage of, the unlockables. That would be a key piece of advice for me. And yeah, I enjoyed my time with the game very much. I'd like to hear what David had to say, and he couldn't be here. He has about 2 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and hear from him right now.
Hey, it's David. Sorry I could not be on Switch Talk this week, but I just want to take a couple minutes real quick to give my thoughts of this game right here. Mario+Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I'm very impressed with the game. It really reminds me of XCOM, but not quite to that difficulty level. But if you completely hate that turn-based style of gameplay, it's probably not the game for you. First thing I just want to talk about is the music. The music is some of the best video game music I've heard in a long time. I absolutely love it, and this is the type of soundtrack you would want to own on CD. It's that good. One other thing of note about this game is I found myself actually really enjoying this in portable mode, which is kind of odd because I'm 99% switch on the dot kind of guy, but I found myself for this game in particular, because of the sort of laid-back turn-based style of gameplay, it was kind of just the type of game you would want to play in bed or on the go or something like that, because you can just pick it up, take a few turns, and then even just put it to sleep and keep going. And I guess that brings me to probably my only real detraction from the game, is I did find it to be kind of hard to play for hours on end. Like, I really enjoyed it while I was playing it, though I found myself not wanting to do battle after battle over and over again for like 2 hours or something, which I think is fine for people like me who don't usually have like 5 hours of their day just to play games. I think that's perfectly fine for me. But be aware that, you know, if you're someone who likes to game for 8 hours straight, maybe you won't want to do that with this game. That being said, I'm going to give the game a big thumbs up. It's probably my second favorite exclusive on the Switch right now, only to Zelda. So, yeah, it's good stuff. Pick it up.
Now, David basically was in love with the soundtrack, and I know you guys mentioned that a little bit too. That's like a big highlight for him. I thought it was pretty good. I think as I go to other worlds and you know, experience more of the soundtrack, that I'll fall in love as well. I mean, it's really well done, just from what I've heard already. If you could pick like any other like key highlight, Clay, anything else stick out to you that really made this the hit that it is, you know, the game that you really want to play?
Yeah, I think a really cool thing about this game and something I'm enjoying is the characters and the variation of the characters. I think just you have to pick 3 at a time, and that's all you can have. And so I'm kind of dreading unlocking more characters because I'm already pretty, you know, content with my lineup, and so to have to set some other people out will be kind of a bummer, but it's just cool. Like, Luigi's a sniper, and I think that's like really cool. And you know, each one kind of has their own special you know, abilities, and their weapons kind of fire in different ways. I don't know, I just think that's really unique, and gives, yeah, there's no like permadeath like characters in this, but I still think they did a really good job making each character feel like it contributes in a different way, and allows each one of us to play in a completely different way as well, depending on who you use and how you work up that that skill tree to make it more unique and stuff. So I think that's a very strong point for it.
John, the expert, any other highlights that really stick out to you?
That sentence has never been said before, John, the expert.
things that really blew you away, the most surprising thing, any other highlights that you can think of. Let's sing this game's praises, because it really kind of deserves it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, other than, like you, I loved the music in the game. I would say the thing that I was most pleasantly surprised by is just the combination, that perfect balance that they found with, you know, it's not overly complicated. It's easy to grasp, especially for somebody like me who doesn't play. I've never played an XCOM game. I don't play these type of titles. So it's easy enough for me to grasp what I'm supposed to do, but there's enough complexity that it doesn't feel like a baby version of those type of games. You know, there's enough difficulty and enough to figure out that it's right there, smack dab in the middle. And I like that it was, at least in the early portions of the game. It gets really tough towards the end, but in the early portions, it is simple enough that I can play. Like with my 9-year-old daughter, she loves playing the game, and I don't think we mentioned yet that there's like a co-op portion of this game too, where you can play kind of separate challenges cooperatively with someone. So I can play along with her, and she is able to grasp the mechanics and the strategy of the game. So I think I got to commend them for just, you know, getting it just perfect as far as difficulty goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that my biggest surprise, my biggest takeaway was, you know, it being the Mario+Rabbids again. I thought it was going to be kind of kiddie and not challenging at all, and I do like, you know, my challenge in there. The enemy variety types, having the Rabbid placeholder and the story with, you know, the two universes melding really lends to a lot of variety. And then they would mix. In the beginning, they show, you know, different Rabbid characters mixing with just random, like, objects, and it makes them visually interesting, as well as their behaviors. You know, typical archetypes probably, you know, have been done in other games, but, you know, it was just interesting to, like, see a new oddly shaped, funny character, figure out what they're being melded with. And again, it's changing every level. So I thought it was really interesting in combination with the settings. In World 1 even, only you kind of have the time of day change from morning to like getting to dusk. And, the colors are really beautiful, just changing the palette around. One of the most frustrating things, kind of moving into a little bit of criticisms, if you can try to do that as well, is I wanted to see more of what was around me. And at certain times when you're navigating the overworld, getting to the next battle, doing, simple things, you have the camera locked, and sometimes it would let you rotate. And I got a little confused, and number one complaint is that I couldn't look absolutely everywhere. I had some hiccups with the rendering and some pop-ins and things like that, and I'm not sure, if that had to do with because I was game capturing or what, but I saw like little artifacts pop up and things, the draw distance rendering like kind of weird sometimes. So I wanted to see more of what was going on. You see like little funny, quirky things going on all around you, and some things are larger than life, and you can go up to certain corners and press the action button and see, like rabbits bouncing around on a dirty piece of soap, and like they're making jokes about it. I wanted to see more of that, and again, I was really interested to look at the world and felt kind of like boxed in and limited with that top-down perspective with what was going on around me. Clay, could you muster up any like negativity about the game, any like wishy-washiness?
Yeah, one thing, and it's pretty minor, but it was something I thought of and I thought was interesting to talk about, is the storyline of this game. I don't dislike the story, but it's very difficult to explain to somebody who didn't watch the opening cutscene. And in fact, I've done that twice so far with my wife and my roommate. They're like, so why is Mario with the Rabbids? And you're like, well, there's this girl and she has a robot, and then she made these glasses, and then the rabbit showed up in a time machine and then took them. And it's just like, it's so hard to explain.
What's not to get?
It's like, well, who's this girl you're talking about? Like, I don't know who she is. And maybe they explain that at the end. I don't know. But it's just like, it's kind of bizarre, and it's just a little bit difficult to bring everyone up to speed. But I understand it's a crossover. It's going to be a little ridiculous. But I'm not saying they did it bad. It's just a little bit difficult to explain. But like I said, it's a really minor thing. So
yeah, it's interesting because in certain Mario games, it's a paper thin story. Save the princess. You're not getting any dialogue in one of like the greatest games ever made to me. Super Mario World. Going back, it's just the gameplay and locales and different enemies and the challenges of getting through. And I think that's what this type of game was for me. I didn't think twice about it. I just kind of enjoyed the next joke, enjoyed the next funny mini boss or what was going on, and you didn't think about it too much. So yeah, that's interesting, because if you really kind of break it down, it's like, what is going on? But you kind of just have to roll with it, and there's enough there to distract you where I think that would be okay with the majority of the people. How about you, John? Anything that you after spending the most time with it, what sucks about this game? Anything?
Well, other than, not a whole lot. Other than, I said I had a few issues with the difficulty in the late game, being a little bit cheap, making you repeat some battles again. Other than that, it's very minor. I maybe wish that there was a little bit more exploration in between the battles. I mean, they do give you a little bit to walk around, and there's puzzles and things, but they don't feel very hidden. I mean, you just kind of stumble right across them. So, I mean, I guess if I was to change anything, maybe a little bit of a bigger overworld with some more exploration in between the battle arenas. But other than that,
yeah, it's interesting you say that. Yeah, there's some other mechanics and little metagames and things to do in between battles and XCOM, resource management, etc. A lot more like skill tree type stuff, except done at the home base. So, maybe you could customize Peach's Castle or the equivalent in the next game, things like that. We got to wrap up here, but, I just want to thank John again for, joining us. We try to keep it short and sweet, and you're short and sweet as a person, so that works out really well.
That's adorable.
It's weird. This game has nothing but potential, and, I mean, there's DLC coming, which is great. They say it's going to be unexpected. And just, if they added anything like weapons, other enemies, other playable characters, different worlds, any one of those things makes me, incredibly thirsty to play more. And, that's great. It's a win. It has to be a win because, again, someone like me who didn't want to play it at all, now I just want to go and play more. Would you be excited to play more DLC, John?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm in this. We'll have to see exactly what the pricing is and what it all involves. But if it's reasonable and it's more worlds or more characters, I'm definitely down for more of it.
That's excellent. Well, we want to thank you again for watching Switch Talk, everybody. Stay tuned. We are going to be doing a giveaway of Mario Odyssey, full game. So we're definitely look out for that for details about how to enter to win. Thank you very much for watching.